All right, Ben, let's work out which teams currently 0-1 are going to be most scared of going 0-2 because, as we know, the hot take of the season so far, going 0-2 is not a good place to be.
No, it's bad. It's definitely worse than 1-1 and much worse than 2-0.
That is why we pay you the big bucks. But what's this? You got some statistics on this, right? Percentage chance, 12%? You got 0-2, you got a 12% and change chance of making the playoffs.
So yeah, if you go 0-2, it's not over. You've got a 12.6% chance of making the playoffs. If you're 1-1, it goes up to 41.4,
okay.
Which basically is like a coin toss.
Let's throw out the teams that were never going to make the playoffs in the first place. Bye-bye, Miami. I don't think it really matters whether the Patriots hand it to them or not. Are we saying the Jets going 0-2? I mean, they've got the Browns, of course, Monday Night Football.
Forget the Jets.
Forget the Jets as well. Well, looking at the AFC here, the Broncos, of course, the Browns, the Steelers. The Browns, for me, straight off the bat, are one of those teams that are going to really, really struggle if they lose to the Jets on Monday Night Football and go 0-2, not least because they've got the Rams week 3. And hot take number 2, 0-3, forget about it. Rarely did teams make it out of that hole. And the Browns, given all the hype, and you would have read my ESPN column this week, Benny Boy, given all the potential that this team finally was going to come out of the doldrums, make it to the promised land, it's not just the statistics being against them, it's the damp squib of a start to the season I don't think they'll recover from.
Yeah, the expectations in Cleveland were so high, right? This was a team that some people were tipping to go all the way to the Super Bowl, you know. They could go 0-2 and they could go 0-3. I think they're going to beat the Jets, so they won't go 0-2, but 0-2 would be an absolute disaster for them. It would almost end their season. And 0-3, they're not going to come back like the Texans did, 0-3, and then win the division last year. Expectations are so high that it would just kind of rip the heart out of that team, but this is still a young team. The Steelers, meanwhile, they could very easily drop to 0-2 with their game against the Seahawks. And I think not only would their season be done because of the way that the Ravens, I think, are likely to play, and the Bengals are pretty good, and I think the Browns will end up 1-1. The Steelers could be a hard bottom of that division, and looking at what is the future of this team.
I think Roethlisberger almost certainly will retire if the Steelers don't have a serious tilt this season. Tilt in the right direction, of course. He's threatened that over the last couple of years as well. The Killer Bees have all dismantled. Even Mike Tomlin's been on the hot seat, improbably, in my opinion, in recent years. But if it does go the wrong way, and the identity offensively, certainly this team, is yet to be decided, I agree. That could be a very messy place for them. What about the Jaguars, of course? Heartbreaking in losing Nick Foles in week 1. The Gardner Minshew era is here. And I know as a man that celebrates facial hair, you're happy about that fact. But again, great defense. Leonard Fournette, if he stays fit, they're always going to be in games. 0-2 a massive problem for them, given this it's the South as well, which is going to be more competitive maybe than other divisions.
Yeah, I think that's a division where teams will end up taking games off one another. Right. And you know, we saw what the Texans did last season, 0-3, and they won the division. I don't think it's as disastrous as it would be for the Steelers in the AFC.
Colts in the same predicament as well, but you're impressed with Jacoby Brissett so far?
I am, but expectations were lower there. If they don't make the playoffs this season, I don't think anybody's going to say, what happened to the Colts? We know what happened to the Colts.
Okay, fair enough. Into the NFC. Giants read the Dolphins on that one. Say goodnight, Gracie, for them. Are we saying the same with the Washington Redskins as well?
Sure.
Okay, so 0-1 teams, doesn't really matter what you're saying, Benny, if they drop to 0-2. Similarly, Arizona, they're not 0-1, of course, because they tied that game, so 0-1.
Yep.
Have you done statistics on that?
No, I haven't. I've got to run that past
ESPN
Sports information.
All right, on to the North. Fascinating division, not least because your Chicago Bears are in it as well, who were horrendous offensively against Green Bay. Brilliant, as we expected, defensively against Green Bay. Check out our Mitch Trubisky video if you want to have more on the Bears. And the Lions in an 0-1 hole as well in the North. Out of those two, more important, presumably, for Chicago because they're serious contenders?
Yeah, the Bears went into the season the Super Bowl contenders, and 0-2 in a division where the Packers look like they're really improving. We still don't really know their offense, but their defense looks great. The Vikings looked like one of the best teams in the league last week. Whatever happens, if the Bears lose, they are 2 wins behind the division leaders, and that could prove disastrous because the Bears have got a tough schedule. Yeah. I think if the Bears lose to the Broncos, there's going to be serious questions asked, and it's going to be incredibly difficult for them to make the playoffs.
The Bears should not lose to the Broncos. You can't really call them a credible Super Bowl team if they lose back-to-back games in that manner. They've got the Vikings coming into view as well, as you say, in the coming weeks. On to the South, the Falcons, another desperately disappointing performance for them week 1. They rallied a bit towards the end of the game. Matt Ryan got something going, of course, but not at the races at all. They're 0-1. The Panthers already 0-2 after that Thursday Night Football disappointment against the Buccaneers. They're already in an 0-2 hole, but we've got to group them in that. The Falcons, Where are you on the Falcons this season?
I think it's that defense. The defense is so weak. It's so soft. You're in that division with the Saints. The way the Saints play, the way they can throw the ball, the way they can run the ball. You've got to have a defense that can match up with that. You can't just think, oh, we're these dome teams, we're going to air it out. You've got to be able to stop people. I don't think they're going to be able to stop people. If they're 0-2, the chances of them catching the Saints just seem remote.
Got to factor that in, of course. You've got the division winners automatic place. So we're talking about divisions that are going to be keenly contested. The NFC South is less of an issue than if you are miles behind your division rival and are scrabbling around for a wild card. You got to get 11-5 for safety, 10-6. You might squeak it depending on how it all plays out. So who's your pick then? Are you going to take one out of all of them?
If I had to take one out of all of them, it would be most disastrous to go 0-2. I would say the Chicago Bears.
Okay, I'm taking the Cleveland Browns for the reasons I said. The energy going into the season, all diluted, all deflated, and the LA Rams up week 3. That is going to be very, very tall order for Baker Mayfield and co.
Hope you enjoyed the Nat Coombs Show presented by Paddy Power Fantasy. There's plenty more where that came from. Just click subscribe to ESPN UK and you won't miss a trick.